Just a few minutes to the venue, sir. The gentleman nodded from the back seat, the city lights of Helsinki flickering across the window like stage lights warming up. Outside, snow feathered down onto the windshield, melted soft streaks that blurred the world. Inside, the car was warm and quiet, too quiet. He adjusted the strap of the bass case beside him, the same one he'd carried since Rust in Peace, now worn in all the right places like an old leather jacket that had seen too many fights and too many stages. He'd done this 1,000 times, hotel to venue, sound check to stage, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the weight of the years, or the fact that it wasn't Megadeth this time. There was no Mustaine waiting in the wings, no pyro countdown. This was his gig, his project, his message. And whether it was 500 fans or 5,000, it was still bass. It was still the truth. He could feel the low-end hum of anticipation in his chest, like a B string struck in a dark room. As the car rounded the final corner, the glow of the marquee came into view, and there was his name. He grinned slightly, half humility, half memory. He wasn't just walking into a venue. He was walking into a story that started in a small town in Minnesota, with a borrowed bass and a head full of Sabbath. And tonight, that story would speak loud through an Ampeg stack and 4 steel strings. Inside the venue, the crew was already in motion. Endless daisy chains of cables coiled like snakes, monitors pulsing with static, the air buzzing with the low thrum of pre-show energy. He stepped onto the stage, boots echoing slightly on the worn boards. The house lights were still up, but even in the air, their flat glow, he could feel the spirit of the room. Clubs like this had their own heartbeat, soaked into the walls from decades of kick drums, guitar feedback, and sweat. He opened the case. The familiar scent of wood, old strings, and road dust met him like an old friend, and there it was. His custom Jackson bass, black as midnight and scarred from years of battle. He slung it over his shoulder, fingers instinctively resting on the strings, thumb brushing the edge of the bridge, a few test plucks. The tone was warm and rich. It spoke his language. Check 1, check 1, 2, came the voice from the board. He stepped to the mic, rolled his neck, and let out a low E that rattled the light rig above him. The sound guy looked up and grinned. Still got that punch. He smirked. She's been fed. As he ran through the opening riff of Dawn Patrol, a few tugs gathered near the wings, heads bobbing unconsciously to the hypnotic groove. It wasn't about flash, never had been. It was about feel, about foundation. This bass player didn't just stand in the spotlight. He held it up. Born in the quiet sprawl of Jackson, Minnesota, David Ellefson would go on to become one of the most respected and recognizable bassists in metal history. Known primarily as the co-founder and longtime bassist of Megadeth, Ellefson's playing anchored some of thrash metal's most iconic records, including Peace Sells But Who's Buying, Rust in Peace, and Countdown to Extinction. His precision, tone, and unshakable groove helped shape a new standard for metal basses, combining musicality with a machine-like tightness that became a trademark of the genre. But Ellefson's story runs deeper than one band. A trained musician, songwriter, and businessman, he's carved out a multi-dimensional career beyond the stage lights, from launching EMP Label Group to becoming an ordained pastor, to authoring books and even diving into education through his Bass Chronicles, clinics and speaking engagements, through reinventions, reunions, and everything in between. David has stayed true to his core mission, holding the groove, telling the story, and letting the bass speak. By 1989, David Ellefson wasn't just holding down the low end. He was anchoring a band that was redefining thrash metal from the inside out. Megadeth was volatile, brilliant, and teetering on the edge of collapse. But when they locked in, the results were seismic. Rust in Peace wasn't just a comeback, it was a master stroke. Recorded with newly solidified lineup that included Marty Friedman on guitar, Nick Menza on drums, the album pushed every player to their limits. David's bass lines weren't just buried beneath the riffs, they danced with them. Tracks like Hangar 18 and Holy Wars, The Punishment Due showcased his razor-tight playing, perfectly synced with Mustaine's rhythm assault, but never losing their own melodic shape. Offstage, life was chaos. The band was riding the wave of sobriety, but the ghosts of excess weren't far behind. David, who had survived the hell of addiction, was now operating with sharp focus. The studio became a proving ground, and Ellefson's discipline showed in every note he laid down. He wasn't just a sideman, he was a co-architect of one of metal's most technically sophisticated albums. When Rust in Peace dropped in 1990, it didn't just turn heads, it bent necks. Tours followed, the crowds got bigger, the pressure got heavier, but Ellefson's role remained steady. Hold the thunder and keep the machine moving forward. In 2002, the machine ground to a halt. After years of touring, recording, and riding the knife's edge of fame and burnout, Megadeth disbanded, temporarily, at first. But behind the scene, things were unraveling. Legal disputes, creative tensions, and personal strain reached a boiling point, and David Ellefson found himself suddenly separated from the very thing he helped build. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there was no Megadeth, no stage, no call time. But David didn't sit still. He pivoted, like a true lifer. While Mustaine worked on reviving Megadeth without him, Ellefson explored other sonic landscapes, working on side projects like F5, diving into business ventures, and even earning a degree in ministry. The bass never left his hands, though. For a while, the spotlight did. And yet, in the silence, he sharpened other tools. He matured as a player, as a man. By the time 2010 came knocking, he wasn't just ready to return, he was stronger. In 2010, the call came. Mustaine and Ellefson buried the hatchet. David rejoined Megadeth just in time for the 20th anniversary Rust in Peace tour. For longtime fans, it felt right. The low end was whole again. The second run wasn't just nostalgia, it was a renaissance. Albums like 13, Dystopia, and Super Collider found David laying down lines with both vintage attitude and new precision. The chemistry was still there. Maybe even tighter after all the years apart. It wasn't a comeback that didn't rely on past glories, but it built new ones. Outside of Megadeth, Ellefson flourished. He launched EMP Label Group, helping develop emerging metal acts. He co-authored books, part memoir, part roadmap, for surviving the music business. He hosted clinics around the world, showing younger players how to fuse finesse with fury. In 2021, another split rocked the headlines. Controversy, fallout. Ellefson was out of Megadeth again, but this time the narrative didn't end there. He bounced back fast, forming The Lucid with drummer Mike Heller and members of Sponge and Fear Factory. Their debut was raw, groove-driven, and fearless. A far cry from thrash, but it was full of heart. He also stepped deeper into collaboration and solo work, releasing Bass Chronicles, live shows, and continuing to build his musical legacy on his own terms. Whether it's a dark club in Europe or a digital release on Bandcamp, David keeps showing up with that same Black Jackson, that same heavy tone, and that same fire in his hands. David Ellefson's story isn't just about the notes he played. It's about the spaces in between, the silences before the downbeat, the resilience behind the riffs. He stood on the world's loudest stages, disappeared into legal battles with quiet reinvention, and came back sharper every time. Through it all, one truth has remained. The bass is his voice, and when he plays it, it speaks of fire, failure, forgiveness, and fight. In an industry that eats its own and forgets its builders, Ellefson's legacy isn't just etched into platinum records. It's alive in the next generation of players slapping along to Peace Cells in their bedrooms. He showed that a bassist could be a co-pilot, a storyteller, a business mind, and a survivor. He didn't just live the dream, he rewrote what the dream could be. The stage might change, the lineup might shift, but somewhere, at some venue, the house lights will dim, the crowd will roar, and that unmistakable low growl will rise again from the fingers of a man who's still chasing the perfect groove. To see and read more about his gear, please visit equipboard.com/David Ellefson. And for shows and dates near you, please check out his official website. And as always, I thank all of you for watching.